Welcome to Just in Time series with Vishwadharma. Today's topic is exclusively for management trainees, management students, those who are doing an MBA or those who has completed MBA and interested to do some kind of case studies, right? So this topic is for management graduates. So what is this all about? As you see on the screen, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'm sure the management graduates, right, well aware about this particular quotation, right? So whose quotation is this? Yes, you might have got the answer in your mind, right? It's Mr. Peter F Drucker, a management thinker, right? And management consultant, is an educator, author, a wonderful, uh, you know, management professional thinker, right? And it's a very popular phrase or a quote. So, when he said that culture eats a strategy for breakfast, Drucker pointed out the importance of the human factor in any company. No matter how detailed and solid your strategy is, if the people executing it don't nurture the appropriate culture, your projects will fail, right? Culture is not about comfortable chairs and happy hours at the office. Rather, it's more about the ways your employees act in critical situations, how they manage pressure and respond to various challenges, and how they treat partners and customers and each other. The culture eats strategy for breakfast. That quotation, it means that no matter how strong your strategic plan is, its efficacy will be held back by members of your own team if they don't share a proper culture. When it comes down to it, the people implementing the plan are the ones that make all the difference. You agree with that, right? So if your employees are not passionate about your company's vision, they won't be enthusiastic about executing the plan, and then your strategy itself stands no chance. Your company will struggle to execute daily strategies, and implementing a new one would be doomed to the fail, right? So be it tactical, you cannot able to make it, and long term, short term, whatever, it definitely, you know, difficult to achieve success. So company culture happens whether you work on it or not. It represents the core of the company. I'm sorry, and most of it is created by the founders especially, right? Sometimes unknowingly, they establish some kind of culture because of various pressure that they handle when they found the companies. So the actions of the founders and executives speak louder than their words in the process of culture creation. I know what you're thinking. Well, this is all the academic, statements, Vishwa. We know this, right? What is so great about it? What is that you are going to talk about it, right? I know you are not satisfied with these academic mechanical statements, right? So let me explain in my style, right? I know management is like a parenting, right? And I'm sure you agree with that. And in one of the previous videos, right, the missing piece of parenting, we clearly explained, right? Parenting, people think that parenting is an art, right? If you consider it's an art, then how do you make it more predictable? How do you make it more, um, you know, uh, pattern oriented, or something that you can forecast or estimate and be sure about it, right? So art is something like it's a free will creative basis, right? So it doesn't follow certain step by step algorithms, right? Because it's art. If it follows, then it doesn't become an art. Similarly, management is also is an art, is what everybody believes. Most of the people. Well, there are pioneers in the past. They brought the scientific management, right? How do you manage the organization in a scientific way? Well, there are a lot of theories that we'll discuss sometime in the future, right? Now, let's come back to the quotation. Culture eats strategy for its breakfast, right? So what does it mean? So when it comes to the culture, we think about some kind of colorful aspects of different traditions and temples and all that kind of the customs, rituals, the practices, various aspects of the human life, right? And that's fine. Now, let me explain in my way. So culture its strategy for its breakfast means, let's say you are a manager and wants to communicate some key changes or some serious updates to your team members. Okay? Please pay attention to this. Very important point. Let's say you are a manager and you have done a lot of homework. You wanted to speak a lot of important strategic, roadmap. You want everybody to adopt, embrace, follow, listen, the plan appropriately, right? So you arrange for a physical face-to-face meeting, right? So then you call them for a meeting. Let's take the physical boardroom meeting scenario, right? So the team members have all joined in a meeting room or a big, let's say boardroom. Now, when you meet them in person, how do you begin your conversation? What happens at that moment, right? Whatever you wish to convey in a serious way, the most important or serious agenda, you may not be able to do it with that same rigor. You know why? Because of how people begin their conversations. They greet you and then you greet them back, and you talk about their well-being, family, and the generic topics, common topics, universal topics, weather, politics, movie, holidays, vacation, ambience, environment, traffic, cafeteria, food, right? So the discussion, what you do at that moment basically dominates your original agenda or the fire in your belly, right? It's very difficult to slow down and have patience in such kind of talks. I know, right? So how do you handle such situations? Let's say you are a manager. There's another scenario. Let's say you are a manager and wants to have one-on-one meeting to give some feedback about the employee performance, right? So when the employee meets you for a face-to-face meeting and starts explaining about his or her situation, the personal life, etc., then how do you communicate the feedback that you wanted to really communicate? How do you handle that situation? What is the ideal way to handle it? Let's take another scenario. You are a manager and doesn't want to be like a manager, and you want to be like a team player, a role model, right? You don't exhibit that kind of hierarchical structure, or you want to be so calm and down to earth and simple. You want to be like, pleasing the team member, and genuinely, right? Not artificially. And you want to be like a team member, one among them. So you sit along with your team, you go to the cafeteria along with them, you take the synchronous breaks, you go to a movie also with them, and the restaurant, lunch, dinner, they almost treat you or see you like a friend, and sometimes even a family member. So when the time comes when you are supposed to give a constructive feedback, right? How do you handle that? Have you been handling it in a really a successful way? Well, there is a way to handle it, right? So when you start working with them and mingling with them on daily basis, then it doesn't mean that you have to reduce your standards of thinking. You have to reduce your layer, right? You don't need to reduce your layer or standards of thinking. The quality of thinking, the maturity, expressions or gestures or your habits, most importantly habits, right? So you don't need to you get down to their level of habits, right? And you can still be part of them, but you can be like a coach. Consciously, you have to spend time with them. You have to be conscious that you are with them for a purpose, a mission, or an objective to accomplish, right? 90% of the time, we fail to execute our agenda or ideas due to the relationship that we have established during the process, during the journey. For the sake of maintaining or protecting that relationship, right, we always try to find some scapegoats, right? For the sake of maintaining a positive relationship with them, you always try to find something else to be blamed. That's how the human nature. Well, I don't want to get into the more details of this because, there is no one straight solution or a common solution for this. It's an art, but you can apply the scientific principles to make the art more predictable. And there is a quotation, I think, read somewhere in my school days. Cinema is an art invented by science, right? Cinema is an art invented by science. A beautiful quotation, right? So like that. So yes, you can, look like it is like an art. You can manage it in an artistic way, underlying, right? Underneath scientific principles, right? You measure behind, but in the outcome, the outside, at the outset or on the surface, let that look like an art. Let that look like a natural thing, right? So being consciousness in whatever you do is what the real management is all about, and making predictable, right? Keeping the environment predictable is one of the best qualities of a top management skills. I hope you like it. If you like, express that when you know, receive a subscription. Thank you.